to the NXT Podcast, your home for weekly NXT reviews and insight.
The beautiful part of NXT is that when one dream ends, another dream begins.
Find all of your NXT news, recaps, and analysis right here. So with that being said, we only have one question for you.
Are you ready?
We thought so. Let's get the show started right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to the NXT review on the WWE Podcast. This is Jay. I'm back going solo today. Before I get into everything from Tuesday night, I just wanted to give another shout out to DJ Kuzmo, who helped me do last week's episode at the suggestion, a good suggestion of the Discord chat group that we have for the WWE Podcast. And again, I say, if you haven't joined the Discord chat, if you're a Patreon member, do it. It's fun. We have a good time. A lot of times I can't watch the shows live for various reasons, so I have to turn off the Discord chat, when the shows are live and I can't watch them until later on. Because I don't want to get spoilers, because, when you're watching it live, you're texting about it, you're getting spoilers. Especially for the Royal Rumble. I was on for the Royal Rumble, but the Discord chat seemed to be a little faster than the actual show itself, so I eventually had to turn it off because I was getting ruined when people were coming out during the Royal Rumble. Anyway, again, shout out to DJ Kuzmo. He was awesome. We had a great time last week. Hopefully someday he will be able to join me again. Maybe after Stand and Deliver, maybe we'll talk about that. But yeah, it was a great time. He and I think we get along really well. That's good chemistry, and yeah, it's he was great. He was awesome. It was great to meet him in person last week at Madison Square Garden, and yeah. Just, if you ever get a chance to talk to him, just talk to him. He's an awesome guy. Awesome guy. Which reminds me, earlier this week I put in the Discord chat that since Jey Uso has a mystery partner going next week for Raw, it's in Glasgow, Scotland, that maybe we say his name enough, he will join Jey Uso, and you know who I'm talking about. The man, the myth, the legend, Joe Hendry. God, that would be awesome if he tagged again with Jey Uso against A-Town Down Under. But I don't review Raw. I review NXT. Let's talk a little bit about NXT. Before I get into the excuse me. Before I get into the actual NXT show itself, I have to say, this week's show, generally speaking, and there was some highlights, but generally speaking, this week's NXT show was the polar opposite of last week. I feel like they put all of their eggs into even though they're really expensive, the eggs. Poor pun. I feel like they put all their eggs into last week's basket. 5 matches that were all stand and deliver quality, not even PLE quality, but stand and deliver quality. And again, as I said last week, the only problem I had with the Julia and Stephanie Vaquer match was that they had a hard stop because it's on the CW, and 10 o'clock is it. You're done. Which I feel that we were kind of robbed of their best match. And I hope that we get that again someday. But we were robbed of their best match because of the hard cutoff at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. And I'm hoping that they run it again in another PLE where they have time. Where the match has time to breathe. Where they actually are able to tell the story. Not that they didn't tell a story last week, but the story got cut off at Chapter 4. I just picked a random chapter. So hopefully that happens again, but this week, unfortunately, not very memorable as far as the episode goes. it wasn't a bad episode per se. Like the cool thing is they had Chelsea Greene defend the U.S. title against Sol Ruca. That was the first match, and I'll get into it in a second. And I have to say that it was really nice to see one of the major titles defended. And every once in a while they do this. They take one of the major titles from the main roster and they have somebody defend it down. Seth Rollins has done it before. I think Becky may have done it before. I know. I think Rhea maybe, but the only problem with that is not that it's a problem, but I mean we all know who's going to win. Like, do I think that they would put the U.S. title this close to WrestleMania on Sol Ruca? No. Would it be awesome? Heck yes. PG show, right, Matt? Heck yes, it would be an amazing thing to just have randomly Sol Ruca win the U.S. title on a random episode of NXT where they were just in the Performance Center too. But of course, that didn't end up happening. But let's backtrack a bit. So we're talking about the episode for NXT from on March 18th, 2025. It is from the Performance Center in Winter Park, Florida. Your commentators are Vic Joseph and Booker T. And the reason why no Corey Graves was because Corey Graves pulled Raw duty in, was it Brussels? I think Brussels, right? So he couldn't be on NXT because, across the ocean. There's no way he'd be able to get there and perform his best. So no Corey Graves, but it was Booker T. And Booker T was just being weird the entire night. Like, he's usually weird, but, like, he was especially weird last night. Anyway. And then, of course, our ring announcer is Mike Rome. So the first match, as I said, is Chelsea Greene, and with her she had Piper Niven and Alba Fire. And with Sol Ruca was there, and she was with Zarya for the, and they battled for the WWE Women's United States Championship. It was a good match. I mean, listen, Sol Ruca puts on great matches, and Chelsea Greene is Chelsea Greene. It's funny, she ended up winning the match. Obviously, Chelsea Greene won the match. I've already kind of spoiled that. And it seems like every time Chelsea wins, she gets this, like, surprised look on her face. Like, oh my god, I did it. Like, well, you're the champion. Why wouldn't you potentially win the match? But anyway, it was a really good match. At one point, Sol Ruca was sent out of the ring. Alba Fire got involved with Sol Ruca, and then Zarya just speared her out of her shoes. It was Zarya is something special, and I hope, and I like her with Sol Ruca. It's a cute little thing, but Zarya needs to be on her own. Zarya needs to go against Jordynne Grace. Like, that would be a great matchup. And I thought they were teasing it last year when they did the 10-woman tag match that one night, but never came to fruition. But yeah, ultimately Chelsea Greene ends up, retaining the U.S. Women's title with the unpretty her. Sol Ruca almost landed a Soul Snatcher cutter, but unfortunately she did not, and Chelsea ends up winning the match. So that was, I would just say, of all the matches last night, this was probably the most entertaining to me. Maybe it's just because it was Chelsea, and Chelsea's a Canadian treasure as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, after that match, we have Javon Evans talking to Trick Williams in the locker room. Javon finally sees where Trick is coming from, that you can't trust anybody. Trick says that he doesn't want to be Javon's friend. He's so focused is getting on NXT Championship back. And Trick says that Javon will never be him, nor will he ever be the NXT champion. And I think, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I honestly believe, and again, I heard this from another creator, I honestly believe that Javon Evans will be the next NXT champion after Trick leaves, and probably like within a year. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, although there was some foreshadowing tonight at the end of the show, which I'll talk about later. After Trick and Javon kind of part ways, and Lexis King comes in to join a conversation. He says Javon is lucky that he's not eating through a straw anymore, and Javon ends up punching Lexis King in the face. So, later on we find out that this will lead to a Heritage Cup match between Lexis King and Javon Evans next week. So that'll be a fun match. And as far as the Heritage Cup title goes, I don't see it as a title. Maybe it's because it's not a belt and it's a cup and whatever. But like, first of all, it was weird to have the Heritage Cup rules, but at least it made it different than a normal matches did. But now there's a cup for a champion and no Heritage Cup rules at all. So it's basically just what? Nothing? It's the whole thing is just really weird. But anyway, that'll be next week. We'll see what happens. So then after that we have Stax, who suggests that the Don should stay in the back during the mixed tag team match because he wants to get him back 100% for the championship rematch. And he's proud that the Don is proud the underboss is finally listening to him, and the family plans to make the Don proud. So later on they're going to have a match against the Cullen, and we'll talk about that. Then we have Stephanie Vacour in the ring. Again, right now, who's better than Stephanie Vacour? Nobody. And I know DJ Kuzma wasn't 100% on board with me, but you know what? That's his opinion, and I understand. I get it. But I'm still the number. To me, Stephanie's my number one wrestler, my number one women's wrestler. It's Stephanie all the way. I mean, I think she's so cool. She really is. To me, she's awesome. So anyway, Stephanie says, I need to be honest, this is difficult for me because English is not my first language. But wrestling is my first language, and this proves it. I have the opportunity to any promotion, any brand, but I selected NXT because I wanted to make history and I'd make it in the best women's division on the planet. Preach, sister. That was me, not her. Last week in New York against one of the best. Now, interestingly, she said one of the best, but nobody mentioned Julia during this entire show. So I'm wondering how long she's going to be out. I mean, I know I told you last week and that Julia, from what I hear, is going to have surgery and will be out for a period of time. I don't know how long, but it's interesting that they never mentioned Julia's name. All she said was one of the best. She didn't say Julia. Nobody said Julia tonight, so that was interesting. I proved why I'm La Primera. Holding these two titles makes me the best of the best, and now I'm waiting for my first opponent, the woman to step in the ring, look me in the eyes. Then Jordynne Grace comes out and says, Stephanie, let me be the first to start off by saying congratulations. You're a trailblazer, and I can't deny that from you. But you're not the only one that accomplished something last week. Then Jada Parker comes and attacks Jordynne Grace from behind. And Jada says that Jordynne is not the first in line for anything. The line starts and ends with Miss Parker. She's not going to sit back. She's shooting her shot and taking opportunities ahead of stand and deliver. And Jada says that Stephanie should bask in her glory, maximize being a double champion because this won't last much longer. Jada is standing on 10 toes down and looking Stephanie in her eyes. She's not playing and she's coming for the NXT Women's Championship. Now listen, I love Jada Parker. I think she's awesome. I like her attitude. I like her style. I like the way she does things. However, she is not nearly in the same class as Stephanie or Jordynne Grace. Stephanie and Jordynne Grace are NXT World Champion material, and Jada Parker is a North American title kind of person. There's no way Stephanie's there was a backstage segment later on. Jada is saying that she wants a title match for the NXT title. Fallon Henley is demanding her rematch, and Stephanie agrees then to fight both of them next week. So we find out that in the first match of the night, Stephanie's going against Jada Parker for the NXT title. Again, Jada's not winning. That's not a prediction. That's a spoiler, and I don't really know. And then the end of the night, Stephanie will wrestle another match against Fallon Henley for the North American title. Now, I won't be surprised if Fallon Henley finds a way to beat Stephanie. Not legitimately, but I can't, and this kind of proves the point. I can't see Stephanie holding both belts for an extended period of time. Last week I mentioned the whole Ultimate Warrior thing, where the Ultimate Warrior he won both titles at WrestleMania 6, and he had to surrender the Intercontinental title because he couldn't hold two belts. I think they're kind of doing this with Stephanie, but they're not making her just surrender the title. I think that there's going to be some shenanigans, and Fallon Henley will be the North American Women's Champion again. So Stephanie can focus on being the NXT champion. I think that's the plan. And then I also think the plan is for now, because Julia is going to be out with an injury, I think the plan is for a Stand and Deliver Stephanie versus Jordan, which to me is a money match. That's a money match. I mean, Jordan Grace and Stephanie McCare, God, please. Please. I'm glad I don't have to pay for Peacock, but even if I did, I'd still buy it just for that match alone. Anyway. I put a lot in there, but you kind of got the gist of what's going on. So then, we have our second match, which I'm going to be honest, I didn't pay much attention to. I watched most... Don't tell my boss. I watched most of of NXT at work today. I did come home and we'll finish watching the end, but when this match was on, I really didn't have interest. I would have had interest if I was watching it without a distraction, but I was also working and watching it at the same time, so... the match was Josh Briggs and Yoshiki versus Hank and Tank, and the concept of the match was the Hank and Tank were going with the Hardy Boys' suggestion of being, quote, extreme. Unfortunately, being extreme led them to not doing what they normally do, and Hank and Tank ends up pulling up the loss against Josh Briggs and Yoshimi Imura. It was not a memorable match at all. The only thing that I enjoyed more than anything was when Yoshimi Imura does the splash where he primes himself on the top rope over and over again and then jumps, and it's supposed to make it look like he's jumping higher than he would have normally, but Montez Ford does that and he doesn't have to do that. So I mean, it's a cool thing though. It's a cool move. It gives the illusion that it's cooler than it really is, to be honest. But anyway, at the end of the match, Josh Briggs and Imura end up winning the match via pinfall. Then we've got Eddy Thorpe saying that he has a lot of things in common with Ridge Holland. No matter what they do, it's never enough. Ridge doesn't want to be pushed into the side for a new shiny sports entertainer in Ricky Saints, when he's been putting in all these years of hard work in the company, and Eddie calls Trick a sports entertainer as well, and he'll take care of him in the underground later tonight. Then we got the third match, which is the Culling with Shawn Spears there, and then they go against the Family. Again, the Don stays in the back at Stax's suggestion, and that's going to come into play. So this was a really cool match. Adriana Rizzo is not the most talented wrestler, but God, man, I love her attitude. I love the Italian woman attitude, and then she goes after people, and it's not pretty, but it's effective. I think it was a really cool match. Obviously, it's a mixed six person tag match, so that the women can only fight the women and the men can only fight the men. Really entertaining match, and at the end of the match, right before the match is over, we see in the back Tony D'Angelo watching the match on his screen, and he gets attacked by the four gentlemen that keep popping up, which we found out later what their name is. And he gets attacked by them, and it's on the screen, so the family's watching it, and then the family ends up losing to the Culling. The Culling, which is the weirdest name. I don't understand the name of the Culling. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. But yeah, so the Culling ends up winning via pinfall. Because of this distraction, because the family was distracted. But nobody in the family decided it was a good idea to run in the back and make sure Tony was okay. They just kind of stood there and watched the screen. And then after getting attacked, they ended up just lying on the ground on the floor outside the ring. But still, nobody actually ran the back to see how Tony D'Angelo was doing, which I thought was kind of weird. Excuse me. Okay. So then we had the interaction between Ava and Stephanie. We're talking about putting both titles on. I've already kind of talked about that, so we're not going to get into that again. The fourth match would be Carmen Petrovic versus with Ashanti the Adonis against JC Jane with Fatal Influence. This was one of those matches like, who's the babyface? Because both of them are pretty heelish. JC Jane and Carmen Petrovic are mostly on the heel, although we find out later on that Carmen Petrovic, at the end of the match, Carmen Petrovic is given a chair by Ashanti the Adonis, and he's telling her to use it on JC Jane. And the referee's right there. The referee's saying, no, don't do it. And she ends up sending the chair back to Ashanti the Adonis and telling him that she doesn't want to use it, which, of course, as the script is always written, JC Jane then connects with the rolling encore to pick up the victory because Carmen Petrovic would not cut corners. All the time, Booker T is saying that Ashanti the Adonis can't be trusted, and this is and then he goes on to say that the whole use of the chair thing is one of the reasons why. So that's an interesting little sign. So then we get backstage again, and we have Hank and Tank getting confronted by Wesley, Tyson DuPont, and Tyreek Igwe. Wes says that it doesn't matter what advice they get from the legendary tag team, that you either have it or you don't. And Tyreek says that all Hank and Tank are good for these days is a burger eating contest. So nice. You know, as a fellow fat person, I'm a bit offended by that. Then we've got Jada Parker saying that Jordan Grace messed around and found out, and nobody will be standing in her way of becoming champion. You're looking at the brand new NXT Women's Champion. Next week, clock it. That's what she says, clock it. So I guess that's her new thing. By the way, there were 6 matches tonight, and again, there's really only one of them, and it happened to be a person from the main roster that was in it. There's only really one match that I really thought was good. Like, that was better than the others for sure. I'll leave it at that. So the 5th match we have tonight is Ricky Saints versus Ridge Holland. This was an interesting match because basically for the first 7/8 of this match, Ridge just kept beating the crap out of Ricky Saints. Over and over again. Like, it's the whole match was Ridge beating the crap out of Ricky Saints, except at the very end, Ricky Saints gets in a few moves and ends up pinning Ridge Holland. Like, I don't know how this makes Ricky Saints look effective as an effective wrestler. Because yes, he got the win, but he looked pathetic doing it. And I know he's not a pathetic wrestler, so I don't really understand why they went this route. And maybe we'll find out in the future, but yeah, it was the match. The match kind of stunk. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you know, like I said, it was 7/8 worth of Ridge Holland just beating the crap out of Ricky, and then, you know, Ricky every once in a while get a punch in or something, and then he'd be going back to getting his butt kicked, and then at the end he pulls it off. So I don't know. Anyway, So that was that match. Again, this episode of NXT was a lot of fallout, and I don't mean that in the positive sense of last week. Basically, it's just we have to use other people because we've used all these other people last week. So we've got to, now we've got to stick in other people to bring in their stories because we had to ignore them last week during Roadblock. Anyway, so we said next week on NXT, of Lexus King, will put up his Heritage Cup Championship on the line against Javon Evans. Then we've got, excuse me, I apologize. Then we have a very interesting, and this is the thing that you have to pay attention to, because you've got a lot in NXT. You've got a lot of AEW people that are now reintroducing themselves to each other, and this happened again right now. This is one of the few interesting, but nothing happened, but it was interesting. So Kelly Kincaid has a backstage interview with Ricky Saints, and Ricky knows that Stand and Deliver season and each victory counts, and that he's going on to deliver on every promise he made to the NXT universe. Then the culling comes out. Now, the culling came out with the three people that are not Shawn Spears standing in the front, and then Shawn Spears with the North American title standing behind them. Nico Vance, who's there, says that the revolution that Saints keeps talking about is standing right in front of him, and Izzy points out that Ricky has some of the best charisma and talent in the world, but he just doesn't measure up when it matters. And Ricky says that Izzy needs to open her eyes because Ricky always measures up in the right places. And he looks at Shawn Spears and says, and you need to stop laughing. And at the very end, the culling guys walk away. Shawn Spears steps up, and we get a face-to-face between Shawn Spears and Ricky Saints. And this is what I'm talking about. The two of them are both in AEW together, so it looks like they may rehash some old connections with AEW, which I love, by the way. Like, I may not know a lot about AEW, but I know when people have interacted, and these two, revisit it, please. So then we find out the name of the Rogue Renegade group is the Dark State, and they weren't buying the We Are NXT BS. Waiting around got them nowhere. Excuse me. Waiting around got them nowhere, and there are 4 talented guys that are not built to be on the sidelines. They're 4 game changers. They're reconstructing, remodeling, reshaping the landscape of NXT the way they want it. And when the Dark State strikes, ain't nobody safe, and the chaos is going to continue. And then they're like, it's not on the recap that I have here, but then they were like, oh, have we done all we can do tonight? I don't think so. And they go back inside. That's important. Sixth match, by the way. That's a lot of matches for a 2-hour CW show. Sixth match is Trick Williams versus Eddy Thorpe in an NXT Underground match. This was a quick match. It kind of sucked, to be honest. There were some cool spots. There were some spots of people jumping off the ring. And, they have the Evolve wrestlers. If you watch Evolve, it's on Tubi at 8 o'clock on Wednesdays, I think. They have the Evolve wrestlers around the ring. And so, like kind of a lumberjack. That's the way they do Underground. And so, there was a couple spots where they would jump out, and, there'd be a bowling pins of people falling around everywhere. That was kind of cool, but ultimately, it was a short match. Trick Williams ended up hitting the trick shot and just beating the crap out of Eddy Thorpe. They kept making a big deal about how Eddy Thorpe has never lost an NXT Underground match. Well, that's now done. He has lost an NXT Underground match. And, yeah, and the match kind of sucked. The after stuff was pretty cool. So then after the match, Trick calls out Obafemi and says that make sure he brings out his NXT title. And Oba comes out and takes off his shirt, takes off the belt, gets into the ring. Him and Trick stare at each other, and the lights go out, and those 4 dudes from... What did I say they were called? Deep State? What did I say they were? Anybody? Tell me. Dark State, sorry. The 4 guys from Dark State are standing around the ring, in the crowd. And Javon Evans comes in and tries to explain to the 2 guys that, hey, we need to stop fighting each other, that we need to go against these guys because these guys are causing a ruckus. And Trick he punches Javon Evans in the head, and then Oba and Trick start beating the crap out of each other. Everybody from the Evolve, the lumberjacks of sorts outside the ring start pulling them apart. And meanwhile, the Dark State guys are really just all standing there watching, laughing. And at one point at the very end of this whole thing, Javon Evans hits a cutter on Obafemi, and Obafemi gets knocked out, which, again, remember what I said, Javon Evans will be the person that takes the title off of Obafemi. And this is to me, this is foreshadowing for the future. No time soon. No time soon. But for the future. So yeah, that was the episode. The episode ended with Javon and Trick Williams just kind of staring at each other menacingly until finally the camera went off. So anyway, like I said, this episode was lackluster at best. It was just okay. Next week seems to be shaping up to be a much better episode, and of course last week was phenomenal. I mean, I can't even I know I was there in person, which makes it even better, but even watching it, the next day it just was so good. And this week was just, we have people that we need to get involved because they weren't involved last week, which I understand. It just, the show, 6 matches, one of them even fairly good. Next week, like I said, plans to be better. I forgot to say this before, but don't forget, ad-free version on Apple Podcasts, Spotify's, and then the Patreon. Don't forget about Patreon. And if you join Patreon, you can join us on the Discord chat, and we can talk all about what's going on. And every once in a while, I like to pop on, give my opinion, and just let things fly and see what happens. It's always kind of fun to kind of stir the pot a little bit. What do you think? All right, I will talk to you soon. Later, guys.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.